right, let's start with some video here. We've got this elderly man who's pretending to be president of the United States, Joe Biden. Listen to this.
Let's be clear. Vaccination requirements should not be another issue that divides us. That's why we continue to battle the misinformation that's out there. And companies and communities are stepping up as well to combat the misinformation. Southwest Airlines, at the head of the pilots union and its CEO, dismissed critics who claim vaccination mandates contributed to flight disruptions. School board members, religious leaders, and doctors across the country are fighting misinformation and educating people about the importance of vaccines. All of these efforts are going to help us continue moving the dial to eliminate this disease.
All right, I like to give credit where credit is due. He read off the teleprompter pretty well there. Jesse, he doesn't want us to be divided. If we just do what he says, we won't be divided, right? Come on.
I don't know why you're dividing us, Dave. If you would just do what your Lord and Master says, we won't be divided. Do I have to hit you again? Look, I don't want to hit you again, but I'll hit you again if you don't do what I say. Why are you?
For my own good.
This is beyond the creepiness of the fact we have a half-functional president. I realize we all make fun of that now, but have you actually thought about that? That's the commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world. He is not a fully functional adult, and now it's happened so long, it's just kind of baked in the cake. It's like, oh, that's old Joe. That's the president. That's the president of the United States of America. That's one. Two, isn't this whole thing beyond creepy, how you're not allowed to discuss anything except the vaccine? No natural immunity. Remember when they started banning hydroxychloroquine? You're not allowed to talk about ivermectin. You're not allowed to talk about sunshine. You're not allowed to talk about not being fat anymore. You're not allowed to talk about anything, only the vaccine. Anything else is shouted down. It doesn't take a right-winger to think that's really, really creepy and something's off.
How about herd immunity? Remember that phrase? We don't talk about herd immunity anymore.
Now, they just update all the definitions of things to fit the current climate so that when you talk about herd immunity, now you're an insane person, because apparently that's not a thing anymore.
But Sydney, he said it right there. I mean, he's basically saying, people like us, we're spreading misinformation. You've got your on-air partner, Elijah, over there reading statements. I mean, misinformation, what are you guys doing?
I think what my frustration is that even if you don't have the greatest grasp of biology or how a lot of this stuff works, I freely admit I'm not an expert when it comes to any of this, but I go, it's really strange to me that we can't even have a conversation about it, that we're really at a point where they go, no discussion can go down whatsoever, because if you are talking about it and it's contrary again to the narrative, then there's something wrong with that, and you must stop. You must stop, and it must never happen. What really, this thing that we've had since the beginning of time in humans, which is natural immunity, why is that banned on Instagram? Why can't you search that term on Instagram? Or even just, why is it the one Elijah says that there's no efficacy of masks in children? Why is it that gets wiped off the internet? This whole thing, especially with Biden, and it's like Jesse says, we laugh about it because it's humiliating. But on a world stage, it's so humiliating that this is the leader of the free world. And you have to say free world, because what does that even mean anymore?
It is, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I just have to point this out too, but just piggybacking off what Sydney just said, the social distancing thing, we've moved so far past that, we don't even laugh about that anymore or point it out anymore. Can we just bring up how ridiculous it is that the leader of the free world and the most technologically advanced country in the world and the richest country in the world got a virus, and the solution was stand 6 feet away from each other. And not only was that the solution, to this day you see it. I mean, you're still standing in footsteps in grocery stores across the country. That's something a toddler would come up with. Just stand away from him, Daddy, then you'll be safe. And yet this is something the most powerful country in the world did as a matter of policy. It's insane.
Right, exactly. You go to every airport and they're jam-packed right now because of flight cancellations. We'll get to that in a second. And yet they've got signs everywhere saying social distancing, which nobody's doing. But Elijah, to that point, even in that very statement that he read, he shared misinformation when he started talking about Southwest, which canceled thousands of flights this week because we know that they were protesting the vaccine mandates. The CEO, he also sort of lied about what the CEO said, because the CEO kind of said that's what happened. But is it possible that flights can only be affected by weather if they're Southwest flights and not other flights? Because that's basically what Joe's saying.
Yeah, I think what it is we've come into a place where truth matters so little that people pretty much say whatever they want. And I've heard it said that the media and the government have sort of become like a father who has been out of a child's life for 10 years and suddenly pops back in and tries to pretend like they know them and we're the child. And it's like, Dad, we're a decade apart. We are way beyond you. We have grown up. We have grown past you. We don't need you. And don't try to come back in my life because you just, quite frankly, weren't needed. And I figured out how to go about. And so you're going to complicate things. And when they say, the Southwest Airlines were about, I don't know, pilots being upset about what? Because when I see Gadsden flags hanging out of Southwest planes, I'm like, come tread on me, Daddy. I'm going, who's Daddy and who's treading? What is this? Is this about a $2, wage increase? Of course not. We're in the instrumental part of our society where we are segregating people. I mean, we are already seeing the introduction of blood-based passports internationally from the World Economic Forum. I mean, they are talking about bringing Gattaca and these movies to life, taking our blood samples, using that as a direct input to give us clarity to travel and to buy things around the world. And it's not just a future idea. I mean, the largest banks in Australia, even the grocery stores, like Woolworths and Coles, not to be confused with American Coles with a K, this is with a C, are going to be linking, the same QR code system for payment that they are for the Vax passport, but yet are saying they won't be linked together in whatever way that means. I mean, we are headed towards an absolute tyrannical communist regime, and people, at least before they're going to get violent, which they will, are at least protesting in the only way they know how, and then they're being dismissed by a half-present president. I could say this will spell nothing but disaster. And it's also humiliating. Like Jesse says, it's humiliating that we've come to accept this. I haven't. I'm still laughing at these people. And now I'm getting pissed, and I kind of want to see more happen.